Okay, we're here with Carly Fiorina. This is Conservative Media. I'm John D. Villarreal, and we're here with Carly Fiorina, who's running for California Senator, U.S. Senator for California. You just did an unbelievable bang-up speech to the young Republicans in there. I've never heard this kind of modulation of Carly before. Tell me what's going on. Tell me why you're so fired up now. This conservative message you really brought down the house in there. What's going on?
Well, first of all, the folks I was talking to, it's their future we're mortgaging in Washington, D.C.
I agree with that.
And, you know, when you think about our over $12 trillion in debt, when you think about the current response in Washington, D.C. is to create a commission to study it, it just makes me angry. And I guess that's what you see. It's time we take Washington back, because now it really counts.
So how do you do that? I mean, how do you take Washington back? Are you going to be part of the old boys club in there? I know you've ran HP, you've been a big, super successful businesswoman. How do you change that culture in there, and where do you start?
Well, it starts with changing the people we send to Washington.
I agree with
So
you.
we have to start by retiring Barbara Boxer.
Amen. You
And
got my vote on that.
And I can do that.
Yeah.
And this opportunity won't come along very often.
Let me pause you for 1 second there. So you can do that. You're going against two other gentlemen in this race.
Yeah.
How do you characterize them? Tom Campbell, Chuck DeVore. Why are you better? Where are they messing up? Why are you the best candidate in this race?
Well, let's talk about Tom Campbell first. You know, he's a little bit like Barbara Boxer light.
Right.
He thinks the way to close the California budget deficit is to increase the gasoline tax by 32 cents a gallon.
Wow.
Wrong. He won't sign the taxpayer protection pledge because he tells us that things are too complicated.
Explain
Well,
that. Explain taxpayer protection.
Well, taxpayer protection pledge basically says, I will vote against any increase in taxes, period. Now, by the way, I think we have to lower taxes.
Amen.
Barbara Boxer believes we need to increase taxes to close the deficit.
Crazy.
Tom Campbell believes we should increase taxes to close the deficit. It's exactly the wrong answer. We need to cut taxes and we need to cut spending. Chuck DeVore has been in politics a very long time.
Yeah.
I really think right now it would help hugely to have somebody in Washington who's actually made a payroll,
Yeah.
who actually understands how to create jobs, who actually understands how to cut spending, and who has a real track record of making the tough choices and asking the tough questions, because that's what's required in tough times.
Proven business leader. You've definitely been tried by fire. There's no doubt about that, the highest level. But let me twist that a little bit. Do you think it takes, I mean, let's just be real about this. Do you think it takes a woman to beat Barbara Boxer in California? Is that a big edge that you think that you have? Talk to me about this.
Well, I think I am a candidate that can hold Barbara Boxer accountable for her record.
Okay.
And that's what it's going to take to beat her.
Oh, yeah.
For 3 previous terms, Barbara Boxer has managed to run away from her record. I will not permit her to run away from her record. So folks can hold me accountable for my life. We will hold Barbara Boxer accountable for her record for the people of California. And it's an indefensible record. And I believe I am uniquely qualified to do that.
Why did you get into this race? You talked about it in there quickly. Why did you get into this race? And how did facing down cancer change or strengthen your resolve for winning this race?
Well, I got into this race because what the U.S. Senate does is impacting every family and every business in America. I got into this race because I think California demonstrates what happens when we get bigger and bigger government and higher taxes and thicker regulations. We are destroying the American dream in this state, and I truly believe we're at a pivotal time where if we don't change direction, we're going to start destroying the American dream.
I agree with that.
My battle with cancer puts things in perspective.
Right.
First, having survived cancer, I am filled with gratitude, and I am filled with a determination to make the most I can of my time. And I believe I can be of great service to the people of California, and I think it matters now. But cancer also puts things in perspective in the sense that, you know, people think I'm kidding, but after chemotherapy, Barbara Boxer isn't very scary
No, seriously,
to me.
right. Exactly. My dad battled leukemia. I love this. I love this, Carly. I love this relatable, Carly. So we have a bunch of things to run through really quickly. I know you're short on time. I mean, a lot of people were trying to put you in the rhino camp, right? You were with John McCain, and they call him a rhino, and the Gang of 14, whatever like that. I saw heard a very conservative Carly in there. You label yourself. How conservative are you? Do you put yourself more towards a libertarian, squarely conservative, moderate Republican? Where would you put yourself?
See, maybe
so people can understand.
And maybe because I haven't been a professional politician, I don't know how to label myself. All I can do is describe who I am.
Okay.
So here's who I am.
Tell me.
I believe actions speak louder than words.
All right.
I believe in accountability. I believe the answer is to cut taxes and cut spending.
Amen.
Those are the two things we must do. We have to get our deficit under control. The only way we can do that is to grow the economy. You do that by cutting taxes and regulation. The only thing you can do to cut spending is to actually do the heavy lifting to cut spending.
Where would you cut? Would you privatize Social Security? Would you do a flat or fair tax and get rid of the IRS? What would you do in there for tax and spending policy?
Well, the first thing I would do is make sure there are no new taxes. And while it sounds
Amen.
so basic,
Oh,
the
yeah.
truth is we never do that.
No.
Professional politicians apparently never have the courage to say, absolutely not, no way. The next thing I would do is make sure that Washington is accountable for its spending. So simple things like every agency budget ought to go up on the internet for every American citizen to see.
Amen. I'm
People
down with
would
that.
be outraged. They'd be outraged by how we spend money. And third, yes, we have to reform entitlements, but you know what? Let's start by getting after the $500 billion worth of waste that's in the federal budget right now. Let's stand up and get outraged by the fact that in the stimulus plan we're paying for the spaying and neutering of pets in Wichita, Kansas. That kind of stuff should drive people nuts, and it drives me nuts.
I'm not going to press you on certain issues if you don't want to go there with some of this stuff, but my own sort of, and it's probably worth what you're paying for, which is nothing, advice, right, is that I think if you come out and you say, you know what, here's some places that I would do something, whether it's a fair tax or a flat tax that are very hot, you know, whether it's you privatize Social Security, where there's other things like that, and say, this is where I stand, and this is my plan, because you have been a business leader, you can do these PowerPoints in your sleeve, and this is how we balance a budget, get money back would be very explosive for you. It could be very, very powerful, something to think about and talk to your people about.
You know what? It is something to think about,
Mhm.
but I'll just ask you to think about this.
Okay.
That's
Interesting.
that's what professional politicians do to get elected. And guess what? It very rarely happens. How many people have talked about a fair tax and a flat tax, and it never happens?
But is that because that they don't want to do it, or is that because of Washington and the system? You see what I'm saying?
Maybe.
All right.
But maybe what I've learned in my life, in the real world, and I bet you what you've learned in your life in the real world, is if you have big complex problems, you start with things you know how to get done.
Fair enough.
So yes, we have to reform Social Security, but could we please first start with cutting out taxpayer money for spaying and neutering pets in Kansas?
Right, exactly.
Could we first start?
Low-hanging fruit.
Could we first start with not, serving senators and congresspeople when they go on Codels into Iraq and Afghanistan, fine steaks and Bailey's Irish cream when our soldiers
Nancy
are eating
Pelosi's
MREs?
private plane and her families?
Could we please
Yeah.
start with the private plane? Let's start with that stuff.
That's fair.
Because that stuff is real money, and that stuff makes the American people crazy because it's their money.
No, I see what you're saying, and I think the point, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is that, you know what, let's start where we know everyone can agree and we can attack the problem right now, and the bigger issues, let's study it and see if we can build consensus over time. Is that a fair characterization?
Study always sounds like people are just pushing the ball down
Right.
the hill, and by the way, that's what we've been doing with that stuff forever. But I do think that you can't avoid doing the very tough stuff of cutting waste out, because you also have tougher work down the road of reforming entitlements.
Last question very quickly here. Demon sheep. I love that you went, I love that you went edgy on that. I love that you got aggressive on that. Tell me what was behind that, and tell me what we can expect, because we have a large YouTube audience, from you and your team on YouTube, and what kinds of stuff might we see?
Well, I think you're going to see this campaign always be a little different.
Yeah. Are you going to get in there and fight? Are you going to do something?
Oh, yeah. Look, I know how to take a punch, and Barbara Boxer will throw punches my way, but I can throw a punch right back.
I like that.
And what people will see in this campaign is we will not be afraid to throw a punch right at Barbara Boxer and her record. And I believe you have to hold people accountable for their record. So when Tom Campbell says he's a fiscal conservative, and indeed he is anything but, because he believes the answer is to raise taxes to increase the deficit. That we hold people accountable for.
How do people get involved? Carly Fiorina, they go to Carly for
CarlyForCA.com, CarlyForCalifornia.com. Please get involved. Help us retire Barbara Boxer. She's got to go. Out of there.
I love it. Thank you so much, Conservative New Media viewers. This is Carly Fiorina running for U.S. Senate. Get involved today. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.